I want to show you a trick that's hiding in a ton of emo and punk tracks. It's a simple way guitarists and bassists can use weird chords and notes to give their songs more tension and emotion without losing any of that catchiness. It's called dissonance, and once you hear how it works, you'll notice it being used in all of your favourite songs. Dissonance can be created in many unique ways. You can try picking notes within the key of your song that clash or use very close intervals, which often result in a strongly dissonant sound, or you can intentionally use notes outside of the key to create an uneasy feeling that, when used correctly, can add a lot of complexity to your track. A very basic example of the former would be a chord like a major 7th. When played in this partial form, you had the root 5th and 7th, or using notes from within the key of a major scale. The tension here lies between the G and F sharp, as they're only a semitone apart. That closeness adds dissonance to the sound, which you wouldn't get when playing a normal power chord. You'll often hear these used in a lot of emo and J-rock, which rely heavily on the friction created by something like a major 7th sound.
Watch you, wanna do you, right where you're standing.
Using notes outside of the key of your song can be done in simple ways too. One of the most common in punk and pop punk is this popular power chord variation, where you take your standard root and 5th and then raise the 5th by one semitone, creating a dissonant sound. This can actually be used in both out-of-key and in-key progressions. For example, say you're playing a progression using power chords going from G, G-flat, E and C. You could apply the raised 5th idea to the G-flat to help tie the progression together. This would be an example of using dissonance within the key of your song. Even though that one chord sounds weird in isolation, in the context of a full progression like that, you can hear how it actually glues things together more coherently than if you simply stuck with straight 5ths the entire time. For an out-of-key example, you can often tie chord changes together chromatically with the variation I've just demonstrated. For instance, if you wanted to ascend from E to A chromatically, meaning you go up one semitone at a time, it might sound a little odd if you relied solely on standard power chords. But by weaving in the dissonance caused by that raised 5th sound, you can make the progression sound more musical while still keeping the tension of the chromatic walk-up. You'll hear punk bands like NoFX use this type of sound all over their music too.
You put on Survivor, and I put on some headphones and cheated with my first love rock.
You don't have to go all in on weird chords to get this effect either. If you prefer a more simplistic major or minor quality, then one of the easiest ways to implement these kinds of sounds is through passing notes or passing chords, which can be effective on both guitar and bass parts equally. For instance, in Rancid's song Old Friend, the bass line uses a few notes from outside of the key of A major, such as C, to add some friction to what would otherwise be a fairly typical sounding chord progression. You might not even notice it at first, because the notes pass by so quickly. If they were held for longer, the part might have sounded too dissonant, but used in this quick passing way, they add just the right amount of tension to make the line stand out. You can translate a similar idea on guitar too, making use of a tritone as a passing chord. If you don't know how to play a tritone, all you need to do is fret your regular power chord shape, and then lower the 5th note down by a semitone, giving you this sound. In the context of a full progression, these kinds of dissonant ideas can work like the chromatic approaches I showed earlier, or like how Rancid used them in that previous bass line. Take a common progression like 6-4-1-5. In this case, I'll use a key of D major, meaning I'm playing B, G, D, and A, all as power chords. If I want to add a passing tritone, I can slot one in just after the A before the progression repeats. There's a bit of space here for a short chromatic walk-up, beginning on A, moving to A sharp, and then starting the repetition back on B. Playing the A sharp as a tritone creates a nice little movement of tension before the loop resets. One final, often overlooked way of adding dissonance is through sound design. From a musical perspective, we often think of notes as single sounds, when in reality each note is made up of a fundamental frequency plus a series of harmonics, additional frequencies that naturally occur above the fundamental. This is where timbre comes into play. Shaped by things like playing style, distortion, modulation, and so on, timbre has a huge impact on how any sound is perceived. For example, distortion adds extra harmonic content, often boosting the upper overtones. When pushed to its limits, distortion can make even simple singular notes sound harsh, aggressive, or unstable, adding dissonance purely through texture. While this might be a little outside of the previous genres I've covered in this video, a great example of this can be heard in Porter Robinson's track Cheerleader, where a heavy amount of EQ and distortion is used to add an intense layer of dissonance to what would otherwise be a pretty simple lead synth sound.
The processing, I'll activate it channel by channel. So the first thing is just a massive amount of 1K, because I associate the 1K with like a scream. Like a human scream is really like, it's got that, that's all 1K, you know? And then I just ran that into a bit of distortion. And you're basically there. I also used a plugin called Reverb that adds these like late swells, this like,
These weird notes are a great way to make simple parts sound way more interesting, though this is only one aspect and there's a whole set of tricks you can use, all based on the basic power chord shape. If you want to unlock everything you can do with that shape, watch this video next.